First of all, welcome to my second channel where you will find all my not Lord of the Rings and Tolkien related content in the future. I'll link the update video from my main channel in the description if you want to learn more about this change. But let's talk about Battlefield 2042 and my impressions. Battlefield releases were almost always pretty messy, and as a result, demos or betas published before the game came out had some issues too. In this regard, Battlefield 2042 continues this negative tradition, at least for the open beta, which I played on PC. And to be honest, I would be surprised if the full release coming 19th of November 2021 will be completely different, because the beta was in an exceptional rough shape for a big AAA title beta, and Battlefield has a history of buggy releases on top of that. Usually the releases in the past had many issues of the beta already fixed, but still many problems remained, and in some cases new bugs appeared that were not a problem in the beta. I still remember Siege of Shanghai working mostly fine in the Battlefield 4 beta, but in the full release it crashed the server it was running on when the big building was destroyed, and the map was removed out of the standard map rotation as a result. But of course, there is still the chance that maybe Battlefield 2042 will be the most polished Battlefield release ever. We will see when it comes out, but I would be surprised. The open beta had a lot of technical issues, but at least server and game crashes were rare for me. I had one server crash and one game crash, which happened while loading the main menu after a round was completed. Performance-wise, the beta was all over the place. I had little issues on 1080p, but on 4K things became messy on PC, even for high-end computers it seems. Many little bugs like weird animation transitions and glitches that made hitting your target in certain situations very difficult, or parachutes not vanishing after you landed, giving away your position, were some of the many annoying bugs of this beta. The biggest issue I noticed was for sure the hit detection. It reminded me strongly of release Battlefield 2, which I liked a lot, but the hit detection was terrible. It often felt like the servers were out of sync, and this feeling I had at times in Battlefield 2042 too. Sometimes you start shooting at an enemy and it feels like your hits do not connect, though from your perspective it feels like you must have hit. Then the enemy turns around and instantly kills you. Of course, this could be an aim issue, but it also works both ways, where it felt like I missed my shot and killed my target nonetheless. In one situation, I had several tank shells going through an enemy tank and I knew I must have hit it. As a result, some situations feel a bit random and frustrating, because from your perspective, it's not clear what you did wrong. It was similar in Battlefield 2, though on smaller servers the issue was reduced. And though the version used for the open beta is several months old, it seems problematic that a beta version that you play 5 to 6 weeks before release shows us this exact issue again. The Battlefield series is not known for its amazing netcode, and as a result I get a bad feeling here that this might be part of the experience of the final game again, which worries me greatly. In this context, the question comes up: if you can't handle hit detection well with 64 player servers in the past, is it a good idea to double the player number per server up to 128 players? At least on PC and the current gen consoles with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Of course, the numbers of players must not be the cause of this issue, and having even 64 players on a server with 10 to 20 or more players at times fighting at the same spot, all with different internet connections and latency on different hardware, is of course not a trivial task, but the idea that this might lead to hit detection issues is definitely not far-fetched. Still, we have seen some Battle Royale games doing this better with around 100 players on the server, so in theory it should be possible to achieve the same for Battlefield 2042, though it's maybe more complex with partially destructible environment that needs to be synchronized too. I really hope that they get this issue fixed for release, else it could seriously hurt the game and its success. Beyond this, of course, we have seen all kinds of bugs, but also some cool stuff like crossplay between all platforms and tons of options. For an older, slightly polished beta build, some bugs are not unusual, though multiplayer betas are often more like a demo of the game to tease people and test how servers behave with a lot of people playing. In this regard, EA and DICE might have scared some customers with this very rough beta and their reputation. We have seen this more polished in the past, but of course it does not matter if the actual release has the issues fixed. Also, don't pre-order games. Still, most bugs seemed manageable and are probably fixed already. Still, some stuff was a bit weird, like disabling the map function or the classic command rows. What were they thinking? But also some deeper flaws came to light, like only having 4 character models depending on the specialist you choose, with slightly different coloring depending on what team or side you play on, though there will be 10 specialists in the full release, with the option of releasing more post-launch. As a result, the beta servers were populated by clones and players often looked far too similar as a result. I often saw friendly fire situations where people were not sure if it's an enemy or friend and just started shooting when somebody moved around the corner, waiting for the hit indicator, also giving away their position. Friendly fire is deactivated on the servers, but it should not be so confusing, and you should not only rely on the blue and orange UI elements to identify enemies, which sometimes also did not show up. Past Battlefield games and also other shooters did this much better. Even when they increase the number of specialists for release, this problem will most likely remain if they don't improve their user interface drastically. I think this is a deep flaw of the game. On top of that, it's also not cool that everyone looks and talks the same on both sides. However, the UI had more problems and missing features. There is no classic scoreboard, which I really disliked. You could only see a squad scoreboard. In the beta, I could not switch squads either. I hope this will be possible in the release version. Same with deactivating the map function while alive. And on top of this, the UI is really bad at telling you what is going on where. They had the interesting idea of splitting a point you can capture into 2 sub-points. So if you want to hold D, you need to hold D1 and D2. But at a certain distance, both fuse just to D in the UI, which is also shown between D1 and D2. And it was highly confusing at the beginning, and you can't really see what is going on either point without actually going there. As said, opening the map when deployed was for unknown reasons deactivated. According to this official forum post, they also deactivated the command rows, a menu where you can select certain commands and set markers and so on, which is the most nonsensical thing I have ever heard. It was introduced with Battlefield 2 from 2005. What secret and innovative tech will it feature in Battlefield 2042 that it can't be in the beta? I can't even yell I need ammo. It was terrible. Some people also dislike the specialist system, though I think it's not bad, but it maybe will cause some problems. The already mentioned specialists are characters or heroes. That is why they look the same, because the same character can be picked multiple times. Each of them has an active and a passive ability. For example, one has a grappling hook and can move faster. One has a placeable sentry turret and improve the turret performance when he is close to it. The support has a healing dart pistol and can revive all players in the same team with full HP, and the fourth one available in the beta has a drone he can fly around to EMP vehicles and spot enemies, and enemies close to him are detected and shown on the minimap. When it comes to gadgets and weapons, each can equip whatever you want, which I find cool, but it maybe resulted in some very useful stuff rarely to be seen, like ammo boxes. Most players had an anti-air rocket launcher, an anti-tank rocket launcher or C4 because of how powerful those vehicles are against infantry. Still, I liked it, especially that you were not limited in weapon choice. I like having options. A reason why, for example, ammo boxes were most likely missing was maybe because you can't easily see what gadgets your squad mates have equipped. If you play with friends and can communicate with them, it's maybe less of a problem, but with random people in the squad, that was not possible, and in-game chat was deactivated too in the beta. A simple solution would be a little icon next to the name in the list with the squad members, which should always be visible, especially when you look at the map and decide where to spawn. I'm a bit surprised this was not part of the user interface to begin with. You also can't spot enemies, which was something they experimented in Battlefield 5 already. By pressing Q on the keyboard, you can maybe spot things, and sometimes your character yells, "I spotted a tank," but it seems to not really work. Interestingly, this feature is moved to the drone of that one specialist with the ghillie suit, or the spotter position of certain vehicles. The drone is in that regard really powerful, because you also see a red dot where enemies are on your screen, not just on the minimap. I tried it a few times and it felt like the probability of my teammates to kill enemies suddenly increased significantly. But you get nothing for it, like no spotting experience points, and just flying around with the drone becomes boring fast, though doing this is incredibly useful and powerful in my opinion, but the beta release did not reward it, so rarely people bothered. And just looking down from above how your teammates kill everything and having all the fun is in addition not that much fun for you. In general, they seem to tone down all the experience points you get. Battlefield always had trouble with this classic "I fight a tank, a very powerful unit with a huge impact on the game for 5 minutes and manage to destroy it, but before it explodes the driver jumps out and I get nothing for it" feeling. Destroying the tank alone with a good player controlling it is worth like 10 or more kills. If the player in it dies or not doesn't matter here. Same with some helicopters. Would be awesome if there would be a stat next to kills called tank kills and helicopter kills. You need to create rewards for players doing this. Interestingly, the victory screen always shows a player's revived stat. Still, it seemed like revives were relatively rare, so no idea if this would really work, but it does not hurt either in my opinion. Speaking of vehicles, I felt infantry defending against helicopter attacks was far too difficult. Of course, everyone can spawn with an anti-air rocket launcher, but without a coordinated effort, it takes so many rockets to kill one helicopter, and on the map we played in the beta, there were 4 of them for each team. The pilots have the classic counter-measurement ability by shooting out flares, which makes the locked-on rocket miss. As a result, the first rocket rarely hits its target anyway. Then, when there are no countermeasurements available for the pilot, not all rockets hit the target. Some angles are not ideal to hit the locked-on helicopter, and a good pilot can avoid a rocket as a result. If the helicopter hides a moment, countermeasurements are sometimes up again on the third rocket, so that misses again, and then maybe the fourth rocket will finally hit the target. But now you are out of ammo, because nobody places ammo boxes, but helicopters usually survive more than 2 rockets, so you can imagine how much fun and effort it is to shoot one down. If they don't kill you and you have no anti-air vehicle, you fight a good pilot for quite some time. And as said, on the beta map there are 4 helicopters. On the other side, the helicopters are not that great against armored vehicles like tanks, and the other one available in the beta was the anti-air vehicle, so guess what the pilots were mostly doing? Right, farming infantry, especially if one team has the better pilots. Of course, there are some dogfights too. Well, this was probably fun for the pilots, it was not as much fun for the infantry. On the map we played, one spot was ideal for farming soldiers on the ground, which was point B. That is on top of a high building where you also often spawned in the middle of it with little cover, and you always saw multiple helicopters circling around it like moths drawn to the light. Point B though was strategically a very important point on the map, because from there you could easily attack other points. So there was always a lot of infantry fighting for it, and I can tell you this often ended in a death loop, which could be really frustrating. Balancing air vehicles and tanks was always a problem in Battlefield, but Here it felt a bit off in my opinion. Of course, the pilots need to be able to score some kills, but I think it was a bit too easy for them, though if available one could press B and call a vehicle drop, dropping the anti-air vehicle on the roof, which usually scared the helicopters away for some time. The drop feature is in my opinion quite interesting, though when a drop was available and when not was bugged or highly confusing. The trailers already suggested a little focused on the more goofy side of Battlefield, and with all the movement options added to the game, this seems to be true. I like that, but I can see that some might be turned off by this. You can use a grappling hook to move up into the air, then use the parachute, fly a bit, close it again, fall a bit, and use a zipline to get somewhere else again, and so on. Also, while running you can slide, there is vaulting, and there are 2 sprint modes. You can use C4 in some creative ways and much more, so if you like this, it works mostly pretty well, I have to admit, and I found it fun, though the movement felt heavily Call of Duty inspired and less Battlefield. I thought several times, wow, this game borrowed a lot from Call of Duty. The map we had was called Orbital and was bigger than usual maps, so that 128 players did rarely feel different from 64 player maps from the older games. What was strange is that the feature of the rocket that can start or even be destroyed has not really much impact. It looks cool, but it does pretty much nothing it seems. Maybe this changes in the release? The tornado did some damage and at least pushes you up high into the air. The weather also jams your minimap a bit and has an effect on vehicles too, also looks pretty cool. Speaking of vehicle behavior, I have to admit the feeling of the vehicles overall was pretty strange. The tank was okayish, but all other vehicles felt very floaty and not great. Also the helicopters felt very strange control-wise, and Battlefield did this better in the past. The physics are completely off, however, I guess this could be tweaked for the actual release or in patches. I also found it impressive that not intended standing as soldier on a moving vehicle worked pretty well. Often this interaction causes glitches in other games and also in previous Battlefield games, but in the beta it worked very well, though moving in an elevator was very bugged in contrast. Another thing I noticed, destructibility is again not where it once was with Bad Company 2. I think they reduced it even further for Battlefield 2042. On the map you could not completely destroy a single building. Freight containers were indestructible, though the terrain changes its form quite well. Destructibility was always a standout feature for me. With it, a level evolves and changes during a match, and it's fun to drive a tank through a building. No idea why they never went back to how Bad Company did it. Another weird element, servers are filled with bots when there are not enough players, and they are not great at all. I think the correct term would be brain dead. One can farm them easily. Not sure why they did this, though I have to admit later in the beta when all players had access, I saw far less bots. So what is my conclusion? Overall, I still had some fun with the beta and I can see potential in the game, but I also noticed many flaws that make me worry a bit. I guess most of it could be patched, but the beta for sure increased my skepticism. I know some people hated the beta and I liked it for the most part, but if they should not be able to fix some of the problems until release, it will be hard to recommend. Of course, they call it a beta, but the game comes out in 5 weeks and this is the first impression we got. I would definitely wait for reviews to see if it's bad and in what technical state the game is at release. If you are not planning on being competitive from day one, maybe wait a patch or two. I smell a rough release because it was almost always like this for Battlefield. I hope I'm wrong here, and we must also consider that there are also other game modes like the Portal mode, where you can basically create your own game modes even with vehicles and maps from the older Battlefields, which sounds like fun. It has huge potential, but what if the stuff from the old Battlefields does not feel like in the old Battlefields? People also might be disappointed then, but as said, Battlefield 2042 has potential to be great, but for sure there is still a ton of work left for the developers, it seems. Fixing bugs and glitches is one thing, but also fixing performance, hit detection, vehicle behavior and physics, some flaws in the visual communication and balancing are all massive projects in a development process, and there is not much time left. So let's hope for the best. I would really like to see a good new Battlefield. Thank you for watching. For people maybe new, I'm Chris, aka the TPhGames. I hope you enjoyed this video, and this was my first video here on my second channel. I have prepared another short review which might release soon. I try to fill this channel as best as I can, but of course my main channel is very important to me. It also pays the bills. While this channel will take some time to get to the point where I can even monetize my videos here. If you are interested in very deep dives into the lore of Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's universe, maybe check it out too, especially if you like trilled R's. Current project is a multiple hour-long analysis of Elrond Half-Elven. The main channel will now be mostly monothematic, but in the past I released some great video game related videos there, like my analysis of original Final Fantasy VII's so-called Genova theory, or a pretty awesome Dark Souls beginner's guide, video essays about stamina systems or difficulty in video games, or my unpopular Sekiro critique. I will keep those videos on the main channel, I think, and maybe link them here in playlists, but for now all my future gaming related content will be published here. As said, this channel is new, so let me know what you think in the comments. I read everything and try to answer a lot. Did you like Battlefield? Did you play the beta? What was your opinion on it? Maybe leave a like or even a dislike too. And in the very unlikely case you want to subscribe, maybe press the annoying bell. Also some hints at more stuff I do. As a little hobby, I stream on Twitch once or twice a week, usually definitely Sundays and often Thursdays. I'm also on Twitter and you find all the links in the description. I plan to produce more podcast episodes too, which are either Lord of the Rings related, video games related, or both. I plan to make a more games related episode with a cool guest in the near future too, but it's published on my main channel and of course Spotify and friends. You find all the links in the description. Again, thank you for watching and goodbye.